Yes, ladies and gentlemen, beatboxers and non-beatboxers, whoever you are, welcome. This is my first tutorial on my YouTube channel, and this is about the post-snare, post-scratch, outward scratch, Android scratch, whatever you want to call it, just not the snare. So in this video, we are going to break down this sound to the best of my knowledge after 2 years of using it. So we're going to start with a history. This sound was found by Mr. Androide way back in 2015, with it being more of a scratch, like a... This was actually made popular by Firnando, Heartzel, myself to an extent, and a bunch of other people as well. They've mainly been using the pop method, or the pop technique, as I like to call it, because they start with a P plosive and they end on a P. It's like pop, pop, pop. Okay, so before we actually go into the three-step process of how to make the sound, we're gonna have a look at the aerodynamics. Okay, so this is basically just so you understand exactly how the air is flowing and how the sound's created. So what's gonna happen is our air is gonna be coming from obviously our lungs. If it's coming from anywhere else, I would be worried. And it's gonna come from here, and it's gonna go down both sides of the tongue, and it's gonna come around like this, and they're both gonna meet right here in the O shape on our lips, like this, right there. Okay, so now let's get into the three-step process and see how we do it. Okay, so now we need to look at how do we make the sound. So before we do that, let's look at what we already have heard. We have been told that we need the back of the tongue up to the roof of the mouth and the tip of the tongue down to the base of the bottom teeth. Not necessarily needed. The only reason why you would have the tongue down, the tip of the tongue down, is for pitching. So you'll get lower pitches with it that way. You will get mid pitches with it in the middle, and then high. So you've got to think of it as where the tip of your tongue is in the mouth, whether it's high up to the top teeth, middle, or low. The air is going to follow to that because of the shape of your tongue, okay? And we'll get into the shape of your tongue right now. So, for our overall tongue position, we kind of want our tongue to be tall and thin, okay? So, with it being tall and thin, it's going to be like this in the mouth. It's going to be touching the roof of the mouth, and it's going to be fairly thin, so we can allow some room for the air to come around, okay? So, if this is our tongue, we're going to have the air coming around both the sides, and it should come all the way up to the O in the lips. Now, I'll show you how. So, I, like we've already discussed, put the back of my tongue on the roof of my mouth, like this. Excellent. So what you're going to feel there once you've done that is you're going to feel the tongue lift, right? So here's a little tip that helps me out. This helped me get a hell of a lot more power and a really nice tone on it. And what I do, we have little saliva glands under our tongue, right? So what I try and do is I try and bring that up and put them over my molars, right? It's going to sound really weird, but once you try it, you'll kind of get to understand it. So I'll give you an example. You see that? So what that's doing is essentially just making sure that no air goes underneath, goes over the top, it's all down the sides, and it's all to the O in the lips. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to make the sound more powerful, and like I said, it's going to give it a nicer tone. Side note, you will know that you're doing this right when you feel your neck tense. Your neck will be very tense. All these muscles here are going to be very tense. Now, I want to break this down just a little bit more for you, okay? So, you can see in my mouth here that we have two obvious gaps. Right here, okay? Now, this is exactly where the air is going to flow, and we can tell that our tongue is in the right position. Now, the tip of my tongue is not where you think it is. That's the tip of my tongue. And the tip of my tongue is behind my teeth, not at the front. Not this, because you'll lose the sound. All the way back, okay? What that's going to do is allow for the extra space for the air to get around. We're good to go. And then all we're going to do for step 2 is hiss. And you should feel like an obvious flow of air coming through around here. And it'll be hitting the cheeks, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. We don't want to feel it come over the top. We don't want to feel it come under the bottom. We just want to feel it come right down the sides. Now what that's going to do is we've already created the channels for it. Here. Okay, so I'll give you a little example just before we move on with the hiss technique, the tongue position in high, medium, and then obviously the low ones are your lower frequencies. So high, medium, and then obviously you can use the low frequencies, which you hear people like Shazam and Heartzel and everybody else doing. Okay, so let's move on to step 3. So step 3 is lip position. Now this is probably one of the hardest parts, only because we are doing a sound based solely off aerodynamics, rather than having, you know, like a lip to vibrate, or, you know, a vocal cord to do the same thing. And everybody's mouth is different. Okay, some people have teeth, some people don't have teeth. So just keep persisting with it, and you'll find the sweet spot, and you'll get there. Okay, so what we're gonna do, right, this is my tip, is we're gonna go from wide, ha, and we're gonna do our position, look in the mirror, make sure we've got the obvious channels of air, and then we're gonna go how, okay, we're gonna bring it down to that point, how, like that. All right, now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna find, it's probably gonna sound like this at first. Once you've found this is perfect. You always want to start very gently as you come into the sound, because if you, it's not gonna come out the way you want it to, and you're definitely not gonna get that tone, and it's gonna take longer for you to actually perfect the sound. So, what I want you to do is to get the positioning, exactly as we've just done. Okay? Then we're just gonna breathe, no vocal, and we're just gonna, like we just took a deep breath in, I'm gonna release it slowly, and we're gonna try and find the sweet spot. So once we've got the sweet spot, there's 2 important things that you should notice, okay? You will notice that there is a little bit of a tickle on the end of the tongue. It's a little bit of a tickle on the end of the tongue, which is perfect. You wanna maintain that same position for as long as you can and keep practicing it. The more air that you put through this one sweet spot is going to increase the volume, and it's going to increase the pitch. So same mouth position. It's very high, I'm blowing really hard, okay? But if I do it very gentle, it's going to be a different tone, okay? So just know that even if, you know, maybe you only find the point with the tongue in the middle or at the top or at the bottom, just know that you can change the pitch by breathing through harder and softer, but you can also do it by using the tongue as a control. Now over to the bonus section, I guess, which is going to be application, okay? How do I use this sound? I've watched this tutorial, I've just managed to get it. What do I use it with? Well, there's a million different ways that you can use this sound. There is many layers, okay? So we've got to think about what we're actually doing with the sound, okay? So we're only actually using the tongue, palate, and lips for the sound, okay? Obviously we're breathing through, but we're not using the throat, we're not using our voice and so on, so we can actually layer this sound over anything vocal, essentially, okay? Whether it be a vocal bass, whether it be a polyphonic, whether it be a normal voice, whether it be a chest bass, a vibration bass, whatever, it's layerable. That's why I think this sound has a lot of potential. But before we go on to all the other applications of this sound, I want to talk about, probably for me, one of the main ones, which is diaphragm application, okay? So you'll be thinking, okay, yes, we're breathing, we'll be using our diaphragm too. But as I mentioned earlier, when we put more power behind the breath, we increase in volume and pitch, okay? So the diaphragm is essentially just a way of controlling that. We can push that air out really fast with our diaphragm and snap it back, so then it's just soft again, right? And for things like the pop method, which we mentioned earlier, okay, I see many people now are really struggling because they're just breathing with it. They're going, which is good, but you can get a much better tone by now you'll see my stomach, okay? Here we go. You can see that bounce, okay? That bounce is my diaphragm kind of open, close, like this, okay? It's bouncing. What this is doing essentially is every time I put in that first initial air from the diaphragm, like, it's the pitch goes up, the volume goes up. And then the second one, I'm forcing more air and it's going high. You see how it's... That's the diaphragm. Brings it back up. Okay, so really, really, really important to train that and try loads of different things with it. If you're especially good at doing drags, you're gonna find some good uses for this sound. Okay, so we already know that we can layer it on top of vocals, polys, basses, God knows what, because we're not actually using the throat and it's not impeding in any of our other sounds in that region. So what else can we use it for? One thing I do wanna make a point of is not a snare. It is a scratch. It's on a P plosive, and it's nobody goes. Nobody does that. Okay. The way I use it is a snare. Okay. I use it with an outward K. Okay. I also use it with drags. So there's two applications: drags and outward K. We can also use this with a power snare, which has a very weird tone to it. I believe this is better when you do have the tip of the tongue to the bottom of the teeth. Okay, it's a great one. You can use it with a PF snare. It's very hard, but you can. Very strange one. I'm still working on it, but there's a million different applications that we can use it for, is my point. One that I like is using it as a staccato on top of a vocal. Just filling in the space. I like it as just your usual scratch. All these different things, okay? So look, I want you guys to let me know exactly what you managed to do in the comments. So that's essentially it. That is, to the best of my knowledge, everything I know right now about the post scratch or post snare or outward scratch. Yeah, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you managed to learn it too. And if you have, let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't, also let me know in the comments down below. For the next few days, I will be going down there and trying to help people out who are struggling. Make sure you follow the steps clearly and you should find it, okay? And if you really, really, really do struggle, I am a beatbox teacher of 4 years now. And if you want me to help you privately, one-to-one, whether it's for the outward scratch or anything else beatbox related, then let me know. I'm contactable on Instagram, or you can drop a comment down below and I'll reply to that comment and we will reconvene. But yeah, thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. We have a bunch of really fun streams coming up on YouTube too soon. And yeah, let's take this po to the moon, baby. Let's go.